Welcome to HowStreet.com Radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith. He's the senior analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, David.
Hello, Jim. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Today we're going to be talking about what's happening to the silver market and also gold. And you have an interesting thing to tell us, that perhaps things are really going to start changing in the silver market, especially because now not just big players are interested in snapping up silver. You think ordinary people now have decided that's a good way to go as well?
It really seems to be so. You know, I'm in Vancouver today. I'll be heading back to Seattle this afternoon. I went up north to Prince Rupert a few days ago and flew out into the sticks a little bit to check an exploration company and interview the people there and see their projects. And along the way, I ran into several Canadians who really surprised me. I'm seeing that more and more people get it. Regular people, what I call bottom-up investing, the average person, people like you and me who are understanding the silver story. Some of them have understood it for a while and are still excited about it. Others are getting on board. I met a woman on the plane on the way up from Vancouver to Prince Rupert. She owns a little restaurant in Prince Rupert, and somehow we got to talking about silver. I don't even know how it came up, and she said, you know, I've been investing in it for several years, and I think I'm going to still keep buying it, because she says, look what it's done. And she said, it's helped me with my own finances to give me some balance. And then when I got to the site where I was going to visit the project, I met a young man who couldn't have been more than 21 or 22, and we got to talking about it because he knew we had come up, and he knew that I worked with David Morgan. And he's so excited about the silver, he said, I buy these silver rounds. And he pulled out a silver goblet that his grandmother had. And it was just amazing. The young people are getting it, too, about the idea of how powerful silver is, not just as an investment, but just how beneficial it is to our modern way of life.
Right. It's an industrial material, of course. It's a great conductor for electricity. But even on the medical front, silver has become something pretty important.
It really has. You know, people wear silver-infused socks if they're diabetics to have poor circulation in their feet, and this lessens the chance of an infection. And I had a personal experience just a couple of days ago when I was staying here at the hotel before I went up to Prince Rupert, getting ready to fly out early in the morning, and I put my contact in, and my left eye just started burning. There must have been some kind of thing that got in there and immediately started trying to infect my eye. And so I took out my little bottle of spray silver, and I just shot a couple puffs right into my eye with the contact in there. And I'm telling you, less than 1 minute later, the pain was entirely gone. It really is something else.
Yeah, silver and zinc, two of the few things that can actually attack a virus.
Right. It's really amazing. And you know, the third experience that I had, this was all just on one little trip, was with a guy who is he does geophysics, where they go up above the Earth's surface and they look down in to see where these anomalies might be, where the companies can drill and see if there's gold and silver. And he said he is very excited about the silver story. He invests in it himself. He buys the physical silver. And I think this buying of physical silver is what's really going to cause the lid to blow off eventually on silver prices, which have already risen quite a bit. David Morgan said well over 10 years ago, he said, you know, he said it's going to almost take the last ounce of physical silver availability to be bought by somebody before the paper shorts really get totally overrun and the price goes into the stratosphere. And I think it's the buying of people like the three examples that I gave you today, in addition to people like Eric Sprott, who's a billionaire, who's all in on the silver story. So I think we're seeing the top down and the bottom up purchasing of physical silver. And I think it's really going to cause things to be very, very interesting over the next coming months and years.
Are we going to see something like the Hunt Brothers scenario where, you know, just one person or two tries to snap up the whole market?
I think we're going to see the Hunt Brothers times 50,000, because this is no longer just a story of a couple guys in Texas that want to corner the silver market. This is a global phenomenon. As you know, the Chinese they're keeping every ounce of silver they mine. They're bringing in massive amounts that purchase from out of China. They're become the world's largest gold producer and also the user of gold because they're purchasing it. So it's a global phenomenon, and it's being driven by all sorts of systemic issues, which there don't seem to be any way out by the traditional means of just printing more and more paper.
Well, okay, so silver is looking up, and gold, which for a while was just kind of slopping around in the same area, things are happening there as well.
They are, you know, and There's I believe it was Scott Hamilton wrote this. There's something like an 85 to an 86% correlation between the price movement of gold and silver. So they don't move always the same day by day, but I remember this from the 1980s bull market. You'd see silver run for a week or two, and gold would just kind of sit there and not do much. And then all of a sudden gold would run, and silver would kind of sit there a little bit. So, but by and large, they are very closely coordinated. And this is such an exciting situation that we have. You and I talked a few months ago when the miners market was left for dead and people thought silver and gold were going to keep going down, down, down. And look at them now. Silver is around almost $35. It had been 26 when you and I were talking. Gold is knocking on 1800. And, there's going to be back up and forward movement, and it's going to be violent in both directions, as we've talked many times. But the trend is still up. And I'm looking really forward to the next conference I'll be attending at the Silver Summit in late October over in Spokane, where Eric Sprott actually will be he'll be the keynote speaker over there. So, there's a lot of Americans attending, but people from really all over the world and a lot of Canadians. So hopefully some of our listeners will get a chance to go down there. I think they will be very impressed if they get a chance to do so.
And I think with this kind of movement taking place, that summit's going to be a little more jam-packed than usual.
I think it will be very well attended. And if memory serves, that summit is on October 25th and 26th in downtown Spokane. So I think it's really exciting. I'm really happy to be there to listen to the great speakers. David Morgan will be there, and I'll be able to help as needed there. And it's just going to be a lot of fun and very informative.
What do you think people who go there should ask about?
Well, I think that they should be, of course, listening to these top-notch speakers, going around and talking to the different companies. The Silver Summit is silver-centric. In other words, the primary focus is on silver, but there are companies there that have a large gold presence as well, too. As you know, there are relatively few primary silver producers in the world. I think there are less than 30. But a number of the very top-notch primary silver producers will be there and have been there in the past. So it's going to be just very, very interesting, and I think I just can't wait to go myself, frankly.
Right. So after an event like the Silver Summit, does that really affect what happens in the market, or do people just walk away and mull over it for a while?
Well, I think you'll see changes in the marketplace and the people that attend there. And there's two kinds of people. There are people that go and learn about something and they go home and they don't do anything. And then there are other kinds of people who learn about something. And I always encourage people to try to take away one or two big ideas. And every time I go to a conference, whether I'm presenting at the House Street conferences, the money conferences, or the Cambridge House, or Silver Summit, whatever, I tell people, get one or two big ideas that really intrigue you, that you've learned about at one of these conferences. Go home and immediately start researching and think about it. Don't even wait a week. Do it within the first few days, and then decide perhaps on taking some actionable advice that you've come up with based upon what you've learned in your further research. And there's a saying in China that I'm trying to remember how this goes, he who does not act does not know. So you might know something, but if you don't act on it, it's like you don't have that knowledge at all. So action is important, action that fits your personality and your financial means and goals.
I remember attending a conference, and one of the speakers said, if you asked everybody here, are you going to do something with what you've learned, 100% will put their hands up. And he says it's as low as 10% actually do something.
And that's probably a high figure, but it's so important, because if you feel, empowered to do something and it works for you, then act on it. Don't just sit around and say, oh, I wish I had. It's very powerful advice, I think.
Yeah, you hear people who've spent all kinds of money to, say, go to a Silver Summit or an economic expo, like House Street put on, and you spent all that money, hotel, meals and everything. Why didn't you use some of that good advice?
It's true, and we all have to sometimes push ourselves out of the chair to do it. But when you get into that habit, then you find that you're more of a participant in life, and not just about buying silver stocks or investing in things like that, but it's about everything you do. When you feel motivated at the moment to do something, get more knowledge about it, and then decide and then act.
Yeah, sitting around wondering what would have happened doesn't do a thing, does it?
Not much.
My guest has been David Smith. He's the senior analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com.